Welcome to the Invested Dads Podcast, simplifying financial topics so that you can take action and make your financial situation better. Helping you to understand the current world of financial planning and investments, here are your hosts, Josh Robb and Austin Wilson.
All right. Hey. Welcome back to the Invested Dads Podcast, a podcast where we take you on a journey to better your financial future. Today, Josh, we are going to be talking about whether or not the COVID-19 Delta variant will sink stocks.
So I have a personal experience with the Delta variant. We flew recently, and they had to change our takeoff and landing time, so that would be a Delta variant, wouldn't it?
Because you flew Delta.
Because it was different than our original.
Okay, I got you. I'm about to fly Delta, so I'm going to be watching out for the Delta variant when I'm flying Delta.
So if they change your time, ours went up like 20 minutes.
That's a variant.
Varied.
But they may get you there earlier. That could be a variant in a good way.
They did, one of our flights did move earlier, and it got us home earlier, which is nice.
Unrelated, I saw that American Airlines, it was American Airlines today came out with a statement saying that they are instructing their pilot, due to the increased cost of jet fuel, they are instructing their pilots to slow down and let off the gas when they can.
Interesting. Well, I've noticed that because when they did move our flights, they moved it earlier, but the time actually got shorter. And I thought, how does moving your time make your flight shorter? It should be the same distance. You move them equally.
They got a heavy foot.
I guess.
They
Or they told the pilot, hit
you
the
can pick it up a little
extra.
bit.
So, yeah, that's crazy.
They're instructing pilots to...
So you don't just always fly your jet as fast as you can.
You'd think you would.
You think you'd want to. That'd
Okay,
be
so
fun.
that is one of the... Now, we're going to have an entire episode about space. Investing in space, I think it's fun. Another topic for another day. But one of the bull cases for getting space travel understood and all this stuff is that low-level space travel, kind of like that 50 to 60...
friction.
Kind of like that, that 50 to 60-mile space area where, Branson and Bezos went. Mm-hmm. That could
kind
be used... it's like ish. Apparently, they did not earn their wings, according to NASA. I saw it's official not.
No.
So, sorry, Bezos, you're not an astronaut. But anyway, one of the bull cases for this technology and this understanding is international flights can now be beyond the speed of sound and super efficient because there's no friction, no anything.
Drag,
So you should be able to get around the world in no time.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of the bull cases of that. So
interesting.
Pretty cool. But anyway.
Getting up there is
it's a lot of work.
60 miles in the air. You wonder if you save anything doing that.
Maybe not now, but in the future, when you get the hybrid power
rockets, airplane.
We're gonna be getting there. So anyway, no, Josh, we're not talking about variants in your Delta flight. We are actually going to be talking about the new and prevalent COVID-19 variant that's going around the world now. And also, to clarify, we're also not talking about Loki's, the new Disney Plus series Loki and variants involved in Loki, which Spoiler, there are variants of a lot of things, and that, I don't know, that show, I give it like a B-.
I enjoyed it.
It was okay. It was not Falcon and the Winter Soldier good. I also like the end of WandaVision a lot. It was not that good. So it's like third place in my Disney Plus series.
I enjoyed it. It was good.
But that's not what we're talking about either. So Josh, what could it be is the question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about some statistics and some information about the Delta variant of COVID-19. So the Delta variant is the latest prominent COVID variant, officially known as B1617.2, which there's nothing Delta or D in there, so who knows. But it was found in India in December of 2020, which is now about 7-8 months old. Mm-hmm. It's spreading fast. In fact, it is currently contributing more cases than the original Alpha A variant of COVID. So it's kind of it's all the rage right now.
It's not unusual. I mean, if you talk about other diseases to see variants, I mean, every year they have a flu vaccine, and that's not because they're trying to give you the same thing. It's because there's a new version of variant for the flu virus that has mutated or adjusted. And that's really what this is. It's a mutation off of the original that's slightly different enough where someone who's gotten the original could still get this, and possibly their immunity will not protect them.
Correct, yeah. These viruses evolve over, after they continue to spread and spread and spread, they find weaknesses in humans. And I don't know, maybe animals have their own things, but I'm talking humans specifically. They find the weaknesses in the way that we interact in our immune systems and how our bodies work, and they then evolve to exploit those weaknesses, which is what's happening here. Because some statistics are. Now, things are relatively new. Like, this is not hardcore accurate. They're still learning about this as we speak, but it's estimated that this Delta variant is 43 to 90, so that's a big range, but 43 to 90% more transmissible than the other variants, or specifically the original variant of that. So that's significantly more transmissible, which means you can give it to people or get it from people 43 to 90% more.
Which
easily.
is crazy in the fact that part of the reason COVID was such a big concern
Because it was very transmissible.
COVID was even more transmissible.
So this is way more than that.
Right. So it's pretty effective at being passed on.
Correct.
As a virus standpoint, it does a good job of what it's trying to do.
Absolutely.
Being spread.
Yeah, it is an effective virus. It is, and it's becoming more effective all the time. It's also estimated to be around 30 to 100%, so that's another very large range, more infectious than the original variant.
Okay.
The original one did some very bad things. This one is substantially more infectious than the original. So transmissible and infectious, both of which worse off than original. So experts don't actually know why it's more transmissible, but many believe it could have to do with the protein and how easily it can enter human cells. It could also blend better with your cells to attach itself more easily. This helps it to be tougher for your immune system to fight or detect as quickly, and that is from a WebMD article that I'll link in the show notes below. So you can check that out for a little bit more information on that, but that's kind of what we know for now. We don't know a whole lot. It's still relatively new. But early indications actually are showing that younger people are now more susceptible to this strain than they were the originals. Actually, about 2.5 times more likely to become infected than with the original alpha variant.
Is that to become infected or to show symptoms? Because I know there's a lot of asymptomatic for that original one.
Well, that could be as well. We'll get to more about the symptoms in a little bit, but it's affecting more young people than the original one. And that's one of the things that was kind of a saving grace of how the original COVID variant worked out was, generally speaking, the younger you were, the less chance that things would get serious.
Complications.
It wasn't perfect, but the less chance. And the older you were, the higher risk you were. This is a little bit less cut and dry. So I think that that's one of the reasons that people are maybe becoming a little bit more scared because they don't understand that. So that's something that's watching. Another key factor is that it appears more deadly. So actually death or hospitalization. So when you talk about comparing it again to the original, you have roughly double the chances of hospitalization. And if you go to the hospital with COVID, that's usually, and then your chances are even higher for passing from it. So that's not necessarily good either. Talking about symptoms, one thing you mentioned before, many symptoms are similar to the alpha variant. So headaches, sore throats, runny nose, fever, those kind of things are similar. But the cough that was kind of one of the key indicators of COVID, and the loss of smell, which was the big one, those are much less common. They're not even listed in the top 10 symptoms of the Delta variant. So that actually is what not having those symptoms is keeping people from thinking they have COVID, and then they're going out and spreading it around.
Yeah, that loss of
they just think they have a
smell
cold.
and taste is because nothing else did that, right? If I lost sense of smell or taste,
You've had COVID.
You're like, oh man, I know what this is,
Right.
and I'm gonna stay away from everybody. But you're right. If I just have a headache, sore throat, runny nose,
It
fever,
sounds like any flu or cold.
It sounds like allergies, and it sounds like everything you experience on a given year.
Yeah.
And and it ranges, right? You could have mild, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you could still be just as contagious.
Yep.
And so those are issues that, you're right, it makes it even harder to know.
Not even talking about it, but asymptomatic is real. There are tons and tons and tons and probably millions of people who've had either the alpha or the Delta variant that never showed any symptoms whatsoever, yet they had it and they could have passed it to other people without even knowing it.
Yep.
It's not their fault. They just didn't know. It's craziness.
So how different is this really from the what you would call normal or the original COVID? What do you see here? What do you got?
So like normal air
like
quotes on
quoting
a
it.
podcast. Yeah, it is pretty different. It's very similar in many ways to the alpha strain, which is common with these viruses. But like we mentioned, it's that evolution of the ease of transmission, the deadliness, the infectious side of things that changes. And that's just normal, like you mentioned with these viruses. They become tougher to counteract over time, and that's why we need to continuously be on top of things. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So it really shouldn't be a surprise. And I don't think it is to medical experts. They kind of had anticipated that we'd be seeing strains, and they had been from the beginning actually seeing different strains of this. But this is the big one that's looking to cause a huge impact. In fact, the majority of cases around the world are now
COVID.
Delta. They're now Delta variant instead. I was looking at a graph that came out. I forget who put it out, but 100% of cases in the UK right now are Delta variant.
Oh, wow.
And it trickles down. I think the US is somewhere in the 80s or something, 60 to 80. I don't know, something there. So, yeah, it's pretty prevalent. It's all over the place now.
So now we do have the COVID vaccines available. And those are all originally developed for the Alpha strain. But it seems like they're still pretty effective against this Delta variant in that when you look at their ability to prevent, like you said, the extreme end of things, hospitalization and death, they still have a high probability. They're not perfect, but they have a high probability of success.
Yeah, the major, think the Pfizer Moderna 2-shot doses and there was one what's the one in Europe?
Well, what are they?
AstraZeneca?
Yes.
I think. Those are all to the 2-shot mRNA vaccines. Those are extremely effective at not 100%, but 90-some% effective at preventing hospitalization, which is the key.
Yep.
And then as you step down, so you can go, okay, there's hospitalization, then there's symptomatic infection, a little bit less effective at that. And then you've got asymptomatic infection, a little bit less effective at that, and then you have, transmission in general. So it just kind of steps down, but generally speaking, still quite effective at preventing what is most important, which is fatalities and hospitalizations, which usually lead to fatalities. So not great, but we have, it's much better than it would have been had these variants been occurring without already having that technology, right?
And they've talked about possibly booster shots and things like that, which would help.
You could fine-tune the original.
Yeah, even enhance that effectiveness of it.
Yeah, I think one of the major discussions right now is developing booster shots particularly aimed for the more vulnerable people. So the older or the immunocompromised people, those could be the ones that may need the booster shot, where the normal immunizations may be plenty for younger, healthier people.
Yep.
So on that bleak and sad thought of a variant of COVID-19, Josh, I need my weekly dose, my vaccine of the dad joke of the week.
Dad joke of the week. Okay. Question for you, Austin.
Got it.
Do you know why golfers carry an extra sock in their golf bag?
I'm going to give you an answer that's wrong, okay? Because I've golfed before and I'm really bad at it. But I've lost some balls in the water. And that'd be so that you could stick one foot in the water and pull it out and put a dry sock on.
That would possibly be a reason, but you should just take your sock off if you're going to do that.
Okay, good point.
But a golfer carries an extra sock in his bag in case he gets a hole-in-one.
Oh, Josh.
Gets a hole-in-one.
Oh, Josh.
Like
That's
it.
funny. I like it. I like it.
Hole-in-one.
We should go golfing sometime.
We should.
I'm really bad.
I'm not great, but I enjoy it.
It's fun.
Yes.
It's outdoors time.
When my 6-year-old almost beats me.
That makes it all full circle for
Yes.
you. They just like driving the cart, right?
Yeah, if you watch a 6-year-old drive a car, that'll scare you.
Okay, so yes, good joke, Josh. I guess making this practical is kind of what we want to do.
And the original question was not even informative on the Delta variant, but you wanted to know what will be the impact on the stock market. Is this new strain going to have an impact?
Okay.
That was what you originally
That was my
asking
original
me.
answer.
And I still want to know.
You want to
Austin,
know? Okay, my
what's
answer
gonna
to
happen?
that is, drum roll please,
I'm ready.
probably not.
Okay. You sound very confident in that
I
answer?
sound very confident in my definitely maybe not. Now, this isn't to say we're not going to have a correction or even a bear market, even in the near future. In fact, statistically speaking, we'll probably have a 10% correction this year. We haven't yet, and we've had some really good returns thus far. But I believe that we now know much more about this virus than we did a year and a half ago. We have world-class vaccination rates and technology here, especially in the United States, which provide significant but not perfect protection, especially, the most vulnerable. As a country, I think we saw what a nationwide shutdown did to the economy and the well-being of the whole country in general last year in 2020. That's not something we want to be doing again. I really think that it's going to take years and even decades to heal a lot of the, especially economic damage that's already been done for this. So I don't think we're willing to do that again, and I think we don't have to. I think we're at to the point where we understand it a little bit more than we did. Any reintroduced restrictions will probably be more localized, more targeted at more high incident areas, high risk areas. People will continue to be encouraged to get vaccinated, even with the existing technology we already have. At this point, that's the best option that they have. International travel, I think, is still going to remain depressed. We're not going to see open borders and people flying all over the place to do whatever they want for a while. That's just not where we're at right now. But this is something that I think the country is going to manage. But what that makes me think, Josh,
Yes.
is how should people look or think about their portfolios, their investments, their retirement plan, and their situation on a personal level in light of all of this?
Yep. And so this is just one of many impacts to someone's investment portfolio, right? If you pulled up a stock chart and overlaid that with headlines from newspapers or news sites, you would always see something's going on that could cause you the same amount of concern or uncertainty. And that always comes back to our thought and process of you need to be diversified so that not one thing is going to impact your portfolio significantly. You're spread out. You also need to understand that you have a goal, you have an investment philosophy, you have a process, you need to stick with it. Don't try to time the market. Like you said, could there be a correction this year? There could. I mean, it happens every 12 to 18 months, so we're getting close to the time frame. So, it could happen, could not. But what we know is that for long-term investors, these short-term blips are irrelevant. The longer you have to invest, the higher chance you have of successfully growing your money. And so, like you said, the unknowns, you're not an expert, I'm not an expert. We don't try to time the market. What we know is you need to set up your goals. You need to find the best plan to reach those goals and stick with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables outside of the Delta. If some of these spending bills are passed, that could stimulate our economy and offset other things. There's a lot of variables that go on, and so
China.
like you said, there's so much that you could become paralyzed from decision making just based on all the information that's out there.
Well, and I think that's the key, is paralyzed from all of the news. You're being inundated with this, and generally speaking, the news that you're reading or hearing or seeing is going to be all clickbaity headline. Maybe it was, hey, is the Delta variant going to crash the stock market? I don't know. That's the title of this episode.
It's
clickbait, right?
Podcast to listen to.
Well, that's kind of a classic example of you are naturally going to click on something and read something that sounds fear-driving.
Fear-based.
And this is just a great reminder for all of us to not get too caught up in that. We don't have to read everything that comes out. We don't have to watch the news or listen to the news every day, unless it's your job.
Yep.
Some people,
Like
that's
your
their job. Yeah. And don't believe or read everything on the internet or social media. It's just not.
Well, I heard everything on the internet is true, though.
Oh.
So we're probably okay with that. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
It's just make sure that when you're setting up a rational plan, don't have irrational fears change that plan.
Right.
If you sat down with your financial advisor and came up with a good, high probability plan that historically has done well, there's no reason to deviate from that unless something in your situation changes to cause you to reevaluate. Just these type of things are not an excuse.
Yeah, all that to say that something like this is not something to lose sleep about when it comes to your portfolio. Your advisor may be thinking about and planning for this already for you.
Making adjustments.
That is okay, but it isn't worth, selling now, just going to cash.
Yeah, just what if.
Just because of this.
Yes.
Now, if that is part of your financial plan and you need the cash for a goal or whatever that is, that's one thing. But just because of this, the risk is actually, at this point, in my personal opinion, with the way the markets are going right now, there's risk to not be in the market. It's doing pretty well, but there is risk in the market as well. So it's really simple, right, Josh? When you have money, what do?
You leave it.
Or you buy it.
Buy it.
Buy stocks.
Yeah. I assumed it was already invested.
Okay, yeah.
We don't have extra money. You're investing it. You leave it invested.
When you need money.
You get money.
And that's it.
That's it.
It's just really that simple. So don't try and make it overcomplicated. These things have happened before, and they're going to happen again. And stick to the plan, right?
Yep. But if you do want to day trade, we have a stock draft that is fictitious money that you can day trade to your heart's content with no long-term impact because it's not real money.
In fact, we're both down.
Yes. But if you want to join us, there's still time.
There is. Yeah, there's still time. It's not too late. In fact, it's not too late until the end of the year when it's over. You can go all the way up to the end and start to enter our second half, official, the Invested Dads stock draft. Fantasy stock draft even. I don't know what you want to call it. It has a long name. But we have a post on our website with that episode and the details of how you can enter to beat Josh and I in that second half stock draft. And as always, check out our free gift to you. It's a brief list of 8 principles of timeless investing. These are overarching investment themes meant to keep you on track to meet your long-term goals. Check it out. It's free on our website. We try and keep it long-term oriented, so things like the Delta variant are not part of that. Nope. So don't think they are. It's not something to worry about in the short term. It's free on our website. Josh, how can people help us grow this podcast?
Yeah, make sure you subscribe. That way every Thursday you get our newest episode sent directly to whatever device you use to listen. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That way we rank higher, which means more people find us, and hopefully we can help more people. If you have any questions, you want to know more about this, have a thought on the Delta variant, or want to know you're having a hard time with the stock draft, shoot us an email, hello@theinvesteddads.com. And if you know somebody who's talking about this, had questions about the Delta variant, or just needs that reminder of staying invested long-term, share this episode with them.
If they have questions about the actual Delta variant and COVID in general, we're probably not your solution.
We could point you to the right spot.
That would be a good doctor.
Yeah, we could point you to the right spot.
As it relates to the market, happy to help. Well, until next week, have a great week.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Invested Dads podcast. This episode has ended, but your journey towards a better financial future doesn't have to. Head over to theinvesteddads.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and we had a positive impact on your life, leave us a review, click subscribe, and don't miss the next episode. Josh Robb and Austin Wilson work for Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Josh, Austin, or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. There is no guarantee that the statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. Securities investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment plan or strategy will be successful.